Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us at Rare Evo 2024 in Las Vegas. My name is Jeremy Furster. I am the Global Enterprise Adoption Lead at Cardano Foundation. And I'm thrilled to be the moderator of this panel because for me, it's a special topic that is not talked about often enough, which is what do enterprises think and do with blockchain technology? And I am honored to have an esteemed panel of industry experts who today are representing themselves and their experiences of working in this industry. And it's a great time to hear from them on what are the innovations and where are we heading. So I will have them introduce themselves. And while I do that, I'd like them to answer a question. We know that blockchain is a revolutionary technology and industries may be impacted differently. But is blockchain a must for enterprise?
Well, sure. I will start. Just as a quick intro, I'm Willayna Banner. I have the pleasure of heading up growth and innovation for a few engineering areas for our product group at Microsoft. And I also used to run Web3 blockchain for the same for a couple years. That notwithstanding, is blockchain a must for enterprise? The answer is no, right? But that is not unlike any other technology, AI included, generative AI included, where it should, at least in my opinion, never be a technology first conversation, right? Much like any other way we would look to disposition if a technology is appropriate. You should start with the business case. You should start with what are you trying to solve? You should start with what's the actual value proposition. There's generally just two ways to get things done. You're either going to be cutting costs and be more efficient and maybe make sure that you get that pain avoidance out of the way, or it's going to be revenue generating and it's going to be top line. So you kind of decide between those two, and then you say, okay, and after you go through your process, what type of technology would actually be appropriate? In some cases, that absolutely may be blockchain, and in others it wouldn't. As a quick story, I was actually talking to a board of directors for a Fortune 100 tech company a couple years back, and one of the more tenured board members said, okay, so after you've shared all this information about blockchain, what if I'm fine with my tech stack and I don't really think blockchain's the answer? Like, what would you say to convince me? And I said, well, I wouldn't, right? Because if you actually do have the tech stack to get done what you need to get done, then that's great. And perhaps blockchain isn't the right place. So I think, again, the evaluation should still be there. But no, blockchain, I don't think is a must-have yet, right, for enterprise. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi, thank you. So my name is Brent Truell. I head up digital assets at Microsoft in our financial services group. Able to hear me?
There you go.
There we go. Hi, my name is Brent Truell. I work in, head up the digital asset space at Microsoft in our financial services cloud. I will agree and maybe elaborate a couple of other points, which is that there is tremendous value that can be derived from applying this technology in enterprise. But the real must-haves are around business issues like data verification. How do we improve the ability for institutions to go through through audit processes? Where is real value being driven? And so if the right answer to that question is a particular protocol that can solve a problem that other technologies can't, then yes, there's a huge opportunity. But the only must-have is the creation of value. If you are creating value in some way, enterprises will care and they will show up and they will invest. If you do not create value, they will go away very quickly.
So maybe I'll pick up on this. Let me introduce myself first. I'm Mark Rakhmilevich. I head up blockchain, Web3, digital assets, product management at Oracle. And we have been involved in the blockchain space, enterprise blockchain space, since 2018 when we first introduced our platform, Oracle Blockchain Platform. And we have probably a few hundred customers at this point that are leveraging it, a large number in production, some still in pilots and so on. And what's really, I think, a common thread across all of them is that they've tried other ways of solving the problems. So if we're talking about traceability, provenance of materials that they depend on, multi-tier visibility across a multi-tier supply chain, some of the capabilities that they are getting benefits from in tokenization and digital assets in financial services, increasing liquidity of illiquid goods, for example, and streamlining a lot of paperwork or compliance regulatory issues that they're facing and so on. Those are not new problems, and this is not the first time they've tried to solve them. What they find is that blockchain does help in many of these regards to make it a more effective solution that actually can be more trusted, much more difficult to support because of immutability, because of non-repudiation, because of all of the underlying benefits that all of us love about blockchain. And so those customers that found those use cases and business value are moving forward, but I would also agree with the original answers that it's not a must for every enterprise. But any enterprise that participates in a larger ecosystem, that has a distribution chain, a supply chain, depends on multiple parties to make sure they're doing business in an appropriate way, they're complying with regulations, or whereas they want to be able to streamline exchange of assets, tokenization, and all of that, blockchain certainly provides quite a lot of value in those use cases, and many more customers we're seeing adopting it.
Awesome, thank you. Nathan Love here with T-Mobile on the wholesale team. And to answer the short question, that is this a must-have? It's also not, but there's massive opportunities for collaboration here. We're looking with partners that we've done in the last couple of years especially, where we have opportunities to show proof of concept, that there's scale. We are using a lot of use cases to really build on real world applications with other partners in the enterprise area here, as well as a lot of startups. And we're open for business to try and be a big experiment to show what works and where there's room to double down and really scale. So
Great. And, sorry. Now, everyone here has been in the industry for a number of years. How has the attitudes of enterprises viewing blockchain changed? And what is important today? Is it different from what was important yesterday?
So I think we are still in a place of primarily blockchain tourists, right? So enterprises are looking about tinkering a little bit with the technology, thinking about, again, the application, what a proof of concept might look like, what something that's minimally viable would look like. Over the years, I think it's changed in a few ways. One is there's been far more enterprises who have actually looked to adopt the technology in a meaningful way, especially, I would say, in the financial services space, as well as in the supply chain area, as Mark mentioned. And I think, as we've also seen, especially here in these United States, we've had some push from the federal government level as well, in terms of some declarations and things that say, look, we should actually figure this thing out for ourselves. In the U.S., as you probably know, we've been a laggard, I'd say, overall than some other countries. And so getting more secure around what's actually permissible from a regulatory perspective has been huge. From my perspective, that's probably the biggest blocker, frankly, for adoption, because if you don't know if you'll be able to actually implement something and it's going to be something that you can continue in perpetuity potentially if you'd like, that's a very scary proposition. It's also not something that the technology teams and others are ready to disrupt their roadmaps to do, just to play around with. And so, again, I think as we continue to get more clarity from the regulatory aspect, that should help big time.
So maybe I can share some examples of how blockchain tourists become permanent residents.
Yes.
We still have a lot of tourists, but some of the tourists that were coming through in 2018, 19, 20 have moved in. And so they have scaled out large-scale production deployments. I'll mention a few that are public. Global Shipping Business Network, GSBN. This is a consortium of maritime shipping companies that provide container shipping, own ships and all of that, and key ports between Asia, Europe, and US. They have 10 founding members, some of the biggest container shipping companies on those routes. Collectively, they handle 1 in 3 containers worldwide. Every single one has tons of documentation. Every shipment has 15 to 20 documents associated with it, multiple versions, signatures, etc. All of those activities are tracked through hashes on our blockchain platform, have been since 2020. And they have recently added some new use cases beyond just ability to track, create, for example, what they call early release program, where Tesla is able to bring a container that lands, let's say, somewhere on shore from the ship through customs into the factory within a matter of hours when it used to take days. Because all of the documentation is linked, all of the documentation is authenticated, and so on. We have examples in automotive industry. Electric vehicle batteries notoriously consume enormous amounts of cobalt, mica, and other materials that are mined in some very unsavory places, as well as savory places, and so the two want to differentiate themselves. In fact, there have been lawsuits, some families in Congo sued some of the largest EV manufacturers about the damage to their families from this mining that was happening. So they've started looking at how to ensure the traceability that, in fact, the materials do come from legitimate places without child labor violations and all the rest of it. And a partner of ours, a UK company called Circular, has built a solution using our blockchain platform as infrastructure. So we provide managed blockchain service. They built an application for traceability from mining, refining, smelting, manufacturing of units going into the battery packs, ultimately going into the cars, that has been in production for Volvo Cars, Mercedes-Benz, Polestar, a bunch of other companies over the years. There is hundreds of entities that are participating in tracking everything that they do that ultimately results in that battery being installed in a car. 30 to 40 mining, refining sites, a number of logistics companies, and so on. And now they're moving into, and this is particularly prominent, you can see that in Europe, in Germany, there is a consortium of automobile manufacturers that are basically providing passports for the electric vehicle batteries. So as you're driving off with a brand new car, you get this on the blockchain, basically a record that is issued that has all of the history of the materials, but now it's going to have all of the history of your usage of the battery, any repair, anything, parts replacements, etc. So that when the useful life of the battery for the car has been exhausted, it then goes into the next stage where it can be reused in other applications. And they keep track of the same battery with the same record. So this entire history is tracked on the blockchain, and ultimately it goes into recycling, and the recycling materials are fed back into the area. So there is some really visible use cases out there that have been around for a number of years with millions, hundreds of millions of records on the blockchain.
Rare Evo 2025 tickets are on sale now. Save big. General admission passes are discounted to $250, and VIP passes are only $800. Join us August 7th through 9th, 2025 at Caesars Palace, Las Vegas. Hurry, only 30 days left to save. Visit rareevo.io and buy your tickets now.
Yeah, and real quick, I'd just add a last point. Great job, Mark. I would say that, obviously our parent company is based in Bonn, Germany, T-Mobile, Deutsche Telekom. And, obviously the two parts that we're looking at is the adoptability, which is getting more mainstream now, as well as compliance. So people are more aware, we're able to do more things, but there's different rules based on where you're based. So it's been really a cool opportunity to see what works, what doesn't. And our parent company actually has a T challenge every year where they can work with startups, give an opportunity for them to prove out a proof of concept. There's about a $600,000 awards for the top companies to help them really show their proof of concept to make it work, and then we can adopt that. So that's really a cool thing that we are trying to leverage to grow scale here.
I think I can maybe just add one last point on this, which is that the bar, what is the difference, right? If you go back to 2017, 2018, 19, the bar for an enterprise to get started on a POC and start exploring this technology was actually really low. A lot of companies had innovation labs and they had teams that were starting to build. We have to be honest now that with the advent of AI now, the opportunity cost for investing in the space has gone, it becomes much higher. And so the bar's gone way up. So when we're talking with customers today at Microsoft, I imagine the same at Oracle, there's a huge debate on where do we want to invest, where do we want to put our innovation dollars. And so we do see a lot of innovation dollars going to AI. And this is actually a good thing because the bar and the actual projects that are getting built around this technology are the ones that are creating the most value.
I would just add that I have heard many times from our customers that the time you can go to the board and get some innovation funding when blockchain is passed, what they're saying basically is show me the results, show me ROI, and if there is a real ROI and line of business supports the use case, then you can go forward with it. But we're past experimentation.
So speaking of the rise of AI, how does this impact long-term strategies for blockchain solutions or blockchain development teams when you do think about budget constraints and now there is something shiny over in the corner? We're always faced with new opportunities, new types of technologies. Is that a point of maintaining course with blockchain because of what was initiated 2 years ago? Or do you sometimes need to drastically pivot?
Well, I'll offer a couple of thoughts here. I think the time hasn't passed for blockchain, right? So I'm of the mind that yes, we absolutely need to stay the course. I personally do have cloud and AI conversations all day long with many different customers and partners. And frankly, again, even as it relates to AI, that's technology that companies are also still trying to figure out how to extract value for their particular organization to solve a particular or set of business problems. And so I don't think the time has passed, but I do think, and Mark, this is the point that I would underscore that you just made, is being able to articulate very clearly what's the trade-off of value is always going to be important, but almost even more so now because the buzzword of AI is very, very prolific. And where I happen to work, it is something that we're focused on, right, all the time. And so given we know that, when you start to enter the room and you enter the chat and you start talking about blockchain, people are like, oh yeah, that thing that we used to care about a couple of years ago when it was hot. At the same time, we've also now seen over the last year, and again, it's a bit of a tangential case, but right, the approval of Bitcoin ETFs and Ethereum ETFs, potentially more coming on. If you look at the CBDC tracker as well, even from last year till now, I saw that every single country is not only exploring a CBDC, but are in varying stages of implementation. I think only 2 have been implemented so far. That's in Zimbabwe and Nigeria. But again, that push is still happening. So I think there's still real world applications, absolutely, for the technology. But Brent, to your point, the bar's even higher to see when you can get started because AI is everywhere, indeed.
Generative AI is creating an enormous set of demand around verifiability of data. And what is it that blockchain technologies can really help us solve for? And it's exactly that. And so when we bring these two, I don't think the two are mutually exclusive. There is an opportunity, I think, in a big way for us to bring these two technologies together. And there's a lot of companies out there working on this today. I'm sure some of them are here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd say that there is a really close correlation. I mentioned before we did this T-Challenge, parent company in Germany, Deutsche Telekom, and literally last year was Web3 blockchain focused. This year was AI focused, and a lot of the same companies. We had about 400 applicants that we vetted in a lot of detail. Were very similar. A lot of their ideas, there's a lot of close collaboration on the Venn diagram. There's an overlap, and so it's exciting to see, as these opportunities become more mainstream, how they are actually a real use case that we can use. So
maybe I can share a few examples where AI and blockchain come together, right? Because I agree, it's not an either or. It's actually how can you make AI better using blockchain, and where blockchain can benefit from using AI as well, right? So on the first side, we've already heard verifiability of the data that goes in and traceability of how you got to a particular answer in terms of the machine learning models. What data sets did you train it on? what versions of the models were used, and so on, right? There's a traceability issue, and we've done some projects actually with US government doing exactly that kind of traceability for the AI development efforts. But beyond that, you're always going to have now in the public sector, the models are being trained on all kinds of public data, which can include a lot of fake data, right? You don't really know. So having the data that's authenticated and you can validate is going to be very important as you try to bring AI into an enterprise environment, right? So that's one area. The other area is you have an enormous amount of transactions that are going through the blockchain ledgers. And training machine learning models on those transactions is going to be very valuable, but you need to get them into indexing databases and into formats that make it easier for machine learning models to do that. Some work that we've been doing at Oracle actually with our blockchain platform, shadowing the data into the database, applying machine learning models for fraud detection and optimization analytics and things of that sort.
So I'd like to do a quick lightning round with one question, one answer. We have 5 minutes left, so 1 minute per answer. And feel free to just choose the question. What are people not talking about that enterprises are doing to contribute to the blockchain industry?
What are they not talking about?
Yes. What's the silent role of enterprise?
I think there's actually a lot of conversations happening in boardrooms and happening in executive meeting rooms that are not going to be on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, right? There are absolutely CEOs and others thinking about how to explore this technology in ways that they're not discussing. And so I think, again, that's markedly different than what I've seen on the AI side of things in particular, where people can't wait to talk about what they're doing and how they're going to use generative AI. So again, I think this almost gets back to, is blockchain dead, if you will? Absolutely not, right? I think it will continue. At the same time, I think there's a lot of good silence in the work that's happening and percolating in several different companies across various industries.
I would just say that we have seen over the last couple of years a significant focus on digital assets in finance, traditional finance industry, and central bank digital currencies. So we're involved in some of those projects. We provide some CBDC capabilities. And when we are talking to the organizations, central banks, participating financial institutions, the basic protocols involved are not the big topics that, for them, it's operational resilience, it's security, it's confidentiality of large value payments, and things of that sort. They want to know that the same efforts that went into making their current financial infrastructure, the real-time gross settlement systems and the like, scalable, secure, resilient, able to provide 5 nines, 6 nines of availability, confidentiality, and so on, is being applied to the blockchain technology. And we've been going through a lot of vetting by those organizations to ensure that what we provide, what anybody else provides in CBDC space, which is ultimately going to become potentially part of national infrastructure, right? Just think of the scope of it, is going to be able to meet those kind of requirements.
Yeah, and I'd say lastly that there's obviously a huge difference between startups that can move quick and be agile versus publicly traded companies that have to vet it through their board, through their shareholders, and there's a big difference there. So the time to market, there's a lot of complications.
What's the main challenge that blockchains need to overcome today to be more valuable, more scalable, more marketable with exec discussions?
I'll take this one. I think there's really two that stand out, and I'll be short. The first is onboarding. How do you address identity? And everywhere I go, I'm seeing people working on this problem. Even today, I was speaking with Cardano and learning about some of their work in this space. Onboarding and solving the identity challenges, the first thing that comes to mind. The second is confidentiality and privacy. We hear about this all the time. It's one of the biggest challenges that enterprises run up against today.
One that I would add that we see is interoperability. We have today a large number of public blockchains, permission blockchains, and it's clear at this point there is not going to be a single blockchain to rule them all, right? It's going to be a world where you're going to have multiple ledgers, but at the same time they need to be interoperable, particularly if you're thinking about digital assets and currency and so on. in central bank of international settlements, there is this concept of singleness of whatever currency unit you're dealing with. No matter where the money is, you have some cash, $1 bill, you have $1 sitting in the bank, you have some securities on the market. A dollar means a dollar, right? In ledgers and blockchain, that's not the case today. Unified ledger concept that BIS has been promoting is an attempt to solve that, but it depends in a significant way on interoperability, cross-chain atomic transactions, real-time finality, and I think that's going to be the next big barrier. Once it's overcome, you're going to see strong adoption in the financial sector.
And lastly, to Willayna and Nathan. Last year, the word of the year was NFT. What is the word this year, and what will the word be next year?
So I'd say, yeah, you're obviously right. And obviously there's still a huge interest in NFTs. It hasn't gone away. It's just got a lot more speculation and it's gone through a lot of changes. Obviously, I think blockchain still has come back through this resurgence. AI is obviously the big buzzword right now. But you have to look at real use cases, right? And that's really, the nomenclature can be confusing, or people get in stigmas on what they're actually, these words are. But when you look at real use cases, I think there's, over this end of this year and 2025, you're going to see a lot of applications and real startups actually going mainstream, enterprises adopting, these temporary concepts that are actually being proven out. So I think, blockchain is going to continue to just go strong. Web3, obviously we invested largely in that last year. It hasn't gone away. We're just using real use cases to scale it.
And Willayna?
Yes, I just say the words of this year are really blockchain plus AI, right? And I'd say next year, it's going to be regulatory clarity on blockchain and AI.
Wow. You heard it here first. Let's give a round of applause to our panelists. And thank you very much.
Enjoying the event? Fire up that wallet and delegate your ADA to Rare Stake Pool. For over 3 years, Rare has been committed to providing high-quality staking services. And we're now Chang Hard Fork ready. Thank you for your support.